At a busy city café, a 72-year-old man sat alone at his usual corner table, his untouched sandwich growing cold as he watched the world move past him. When a young woman approached with her small brother, both worn down by circumstances, she asked quietly, "May I have your leftovers, sir?" He slid the plate toward them without hesitation. What she didn't know was that this tired old man would soon change everything. And what he didn't know was that her simple request would awaken something in him he thought he'd lost forever. William Harrison rubbed his tired eyes as he pushed through the glass doors of Central Park Cafe. The morning had stretched into an endless blur of errands, bank appointments, grocery shopping, a visit to the pharmacy that somehow took 3 hours longer than expected. At 72, simple tasks felt like climbing mountains, each one leaving him more drained than the last. His usual corner table was empty, thank goodness. The waitress, a kind woman named Rosa who'd served him for months, didn't even need to ask his order anymore. Turkey club, black coffee, and that side of fruit he never seemed to finish. William settled into the worn leather booth with a deep sigh, his joints protesting after hours of standing in various lines and waiting rooms. The cafe buzzed with afternoon energy. Young couples shared desserts, their laughter mixing with the soft jazz playing overhead. A mother nearby tried to coax her toddler to eat vegetables while the child made airplane noises with his spoon. William watched it all through tired eyes, remembering when life felt that vibrant, that full of simple joys and shared moments. His sandwich arrived, still warm from the kitchen, but his appetite had vanished somewhere between the pharmacy and here. The coffee grew cold as he stared out the window, watching people hurry past with purpose he no longer felt. When was the last time someone needed him for something that mattered? When had he become just another face in the crowd, invisible and forgotten? The untouched meal sat before him like a symbol of everything else in his life, ordered out of habit, but no longer bringing satisfaction or meaning. Just another routine in a string of empty days that stretched endlessly ahead. "Excuse me, sir?" The voice was soft, hesitant, cutting through his melancholy like a whisper in a library. William looked up to find a young woman standing beside his table, her hands clasped nervously in front of her. She couldn't have been older than 22, with tired eyes that held a maturity far beyond her years. Behind her, partially hidden by her worn winter coat, stood a small boy with tousled brown hair and shoes that had seen better months. "I'm so sorry to bother you," she continued, her voice carrying the careful pronunciation of someone educated, someone who had once moved in different circles. "I noticed you haven't touched your sandwich, and I was wondering if you were planning to finish it. I can pay you whatever it cost, or whatever you think is fair." Her cheeks flushed pink with embarrassment, but her shoulders remained straight, her chin lifted with quiet dignity. The little boy, her brother, William assumed, peeked out from behind her coat. His eyes, wide and gentle, fixed on the sandwich with the kind of longing that made William's chest tighten. Yet the child said nothing, made no move forward. He'd been taught manners, taught to wait, taught to let his sister handle the grown-up conversations even when hunger gnawed at his small stomach. "We have a job interview nearby," Maya explained, her words coming faster now, as if she needed to justify her request before losing her nerve. "I don't want to be late, but Aiden hasn't eaten since yesterday morning, and I thought maybe—" She trailed off, her composure wavering for just a moment before she gathered herself again. "I understand, if you'd rather not. I just had to ask." There was something remarkable about her approach, not the desperate pleading he might have expected, but a business transaction offered with respect. She wasn't begging, she was negotiating. She wasn't taking, she was offering to buy. In that moment, William recognized something he'd learned to spot over decades of reading people. This was someone fighting to maintain her dignity while the world tried to strip it away. "Please, sit," William said, sliding the plate toward them without hesitation. Maya's eyes widened with surprise, but she guided Aiden into the booth across from him. The boy's small hands reached for the sandwich with careful reverence, taking deliberate bites as if trying to make each one last. Maya watched him eat with the focused attention of someone who had learned to measure love in meals provided. "I'm Maya," she said quietly. "And this is my little brother, Aiden." As the boy ate, her story emerged in careful fragments. She'd graduated with a teaching degree just as budget cuts swept through the school district. Their parents had died in a car accident 2 years ago, leaving her as Aiden's guardian at barely 20. Since then, she'd been piecing together survival through tutoring sessions, weekend waitressing, and house cleaning, whatever kept them housed and fed while she applied for the teaching positions that seemed increasingly scarce. William found himself drawn into her narrative, not by pity, but by recognition. Her articulate way of explaining their situation, her protective instincts toward Aiden, even her stubborn refusal to surrender hope. It reminded him powerfully of his own daughter at that age. The same quiet determination, the same intelligence shining through adversity, the same way of shouldering responsibility without complaint. "Teaching's important work," he said, meaning every word. "The right opportunity will come." Something in her grateful smile suggested she'd heard similar encouragements before, but coming from him, they seemed to carry different weight. Over the following weeks, William found himself returning to the café more frequently than habit required. Somehow, Maya and Aiden kept appearing too, as if the universe was gently orchestrating their encounters. What had begun as a moment of kindness was slowly becoming something neither had expected: genuine connection. The call came on a Saturday afternoon while William was reading. Maya's voice was barely recognizable, raw with panic, fractured by hours of crying. "William, I can't find Aiden. We were at the farmer's market and he was right beside me, looking at the apple stand. The crowd got thick for just a moment, and when I turned around, he was gone." William's chest tightened. The weekend market was a maze of vendors, side streets, and thousands of people. A frightened 8-year-old could disappear completely in that chaos. Maya's words tumbled over each other as she explained her desperate search, checking every booth, questioning strangers, retracing their steps until her legs gave out. "I've been looking for 8 hours," she continued, her voice breaking. "I went to the police station, but they won't help. The officer took one look at me and decided I was some negligent guardian who let her kid wander off. Said children do this all the time, that he'll probably come home when he gets hungry. They won't even file a missing person report for 24 hours. The dismissal was clear. A young woman in thrift store clothes with no permanent address wasn't worth their immediate attention. Maya had been judged and found wanting before she'd even finished explaining the situation. "Which station?" William asked, his voice transforming from gentle concern to something entirely different. Commanding, authoritative, the tone of someone accustomed to being obeyed immediately. When William walked into the precinct 30 minutes later, everything changed. Officers straightened. Supervisors emerged from back offices. The same desk sergeant who'd brushed Maya off suddenly began mobilizing resources with urgent efficiency. Search teams deployed across the market area. Surveillance footage from nearby businesses was pulled and reviewed. An Amber Alert was issued citywide. Within another 30 minutes, they found Aiden, scared, hungry, but unharmed, huddled in a subway station 6 blocks away, clutching the small stuffed bear Maya had given him for his birthday. As Maya wrapped her arms around her brother, sobbing with relief, she understood something profound about the man who'd answered her call. She'd contacted him not because of what he could do, but because he was the person she trusted most completely. The photograph appeared online 3 days later. Someone at the police station had captured William, placing a comforting hand on Maya's shoulder as they waited for news about Aiden. What had been a moment of human compassion became twisted into something sinister the moment it hit social media. The image spread across platforms with increasingly sensational headlines. Retired judge's inappropriate relationship and sugar daddy or savior. 72-year-old's suspicious young friend. Within hours, more photos emerged from unknown sources. William and Maya talking at the café. Him buying school supplies for Aiden at a local store. The three of them walking through the park after Aiden's doctor appointment. Each innocent interaction was reframed as evidence of scandal, dissected by strangers who felt entitled to judge what they didn't understand. Maya's phone buzzed relentlessly with notifications, reporters somehow obtaining her number. Neighbors who'd never spoken to her before now whispered and pointed when she passed. On the street, strangers approached with unsolicited opinions about her situation. The stress crushed her. She couldn't leave her apartment without feeling the weight of accusatory stares. William faced his own ostracism. Former colleagues stopped returning calls. Invitations to legal association events ceased. Old friends offered awkward explanations about why they couldn't meet for their usual dinners anymore. 4 decades of respected service was being dismantled by people who'd never witnessed his character or integrity. When Maya apologized through tears for destroying his reputation, William's response was immediate and unwavering. "Let them talk," he said firmly, his voice steady despite the storm. "We know the truth. That's enough." His refusal to abandon her in the face of public persecution proved something profound. Real character reveals itself not in moments of praise, but when the world turns against you. Investigative journalist Sarah Chen had arrived expecting to uncover a scandal. Armed with a camera and cynical assumptions, she followed Maya through the city streets, prepared to document whatever inappropriate relationship the internet had convinced itself existed. Instead, she found herself standing outside a converted warehouse, watching Maya disappear through a side entrance that looked like nothing special from the street. What Sarah discovered inside changed everything. The warehouse housed 6 families, 23 people total, including 12 children, who had fallen through society's cracks. Maya wasn't just living there, she was holding the entire community together. In one corner, she tutored a 10-year-old in math while his mother worked a night shift. At a makeshift desk, she helped a father navigate social services paperwork in broken English. The small kitchen area was stocked with supplies she'd somehow managed to acquire and distribute according to each family's needs. Sarah watched, camera forgotten, as Maya moved through the space with quiet authority. Here was a young woman who had every reason to focus solely on her own survival, yet had created an informal community center where hope could flourish despite circumstances. The boxes of books stacked against one wall, the medical supplies in a careful inventory, the children's artwork taped to concrete pillars, all bore the fingerprints of someone else's generosity. When Sarah finally approached William for comment, she understood the real story. This wasn't a scandal. This was love in action, multiplied across 24 lives that society had written off. Sarah's article went viral within hours. The public response was swift and overwhelming. Apologies flooded social media. Donations poured in for the warehouse families. A prominent nonprofit offered Maya a director position running youth programs citywide. William became their legal advisor, finding purpose he'd thought was lost forever. The families received proper housing assistance and job training support. 1 year later, at the ribbon cutting for the new community center, William and Maya stood side by side as Aiden cheered from the crowd, thriving in his new school. Justice had been served, not in a courtroom, but in the quiet revolution of lives transformed through compassion.